We are now moving our way to Nevada, which has 2 from 2022. In Nevada, citizens of Nevada may initiate statutes law through the process of indirect initiative, meaning that after a successful petition drive, the initiative is presented to the legislature to adopt to pass, then signed by the governor, becoming law. But if rejected, it goes straight to the ballot for voters to weigh in on. However, upon the governor's recommendation and approval, the legislature may propose an alternative statute to voters. Citizens of Nevada may also initiate constitutional amendments through the process of direct initiative, meaning after a successful petition drive, the amendment proceeds straight to the ballot for a vote of the people, but will only be ratified once voters vote for it twice, with one even year election in between. Citizens also have the power to repeal legislation via veto referendum. The Nevada state legislature may also place measures on the ballot and legislatively referred constitutional amendments by majority vote in 2 consecutive regular sessions. These only require approval in one election. Single subject rule. In Nevada, each proposed measure must address only one subject. For those who are new and not familiar, this has happened with a couple of states. They do have this rule in place where you cannot have a ballot measure that actually addresses 2 or 3 different subject topics. It can only be one. Depends on the state. Each state is different. Subject restrictions. Laws that limit the scope or content of ballot measures. Typically, these restrictions prevent laws from addressing certain subjects. In Nevada, an initiated measure may not make appropriations or required expenditures unless it also establishes a tax sufficient to cover the expense. Okay, let's go to the number of signatures that are required. Nevada requires the same 10% of signatures for initiated constitutional amendments, indirect initiated state statutes, veto referendums, and statute affirmations. Signatures for indirect initiatives are due 2 years before the election in which the measures would appear, meaning the signature requirement for indirect initiatives is different from other types of citizen-initiated measures for a given election year. Let's go down to the very first measure. Let me read this part here from Roger. Legislative alteration. For 3 years after an initiated statute is approved, it may not be amended, annulled, repealed, set aside, or suspended by the Nevada state legislature. Amendments initiated by voters that lawmakers wish to be repealed must be put to the voters. This is different from some of the other states that I have covered, because in some of the other states, the legislator can veto it and they don't need to have the approval of the voters to do so. They can just veto it. Roger goes on to say this is unique to Nevada because in other states, there is no waiting time where the legislator can start the repeal, amend, set aside, suspend, or annulment process right away with no voter input. The only thing about this is the 3 years waiting period starts after approval, not after a law goes fully into effect. Sometimes it takes 3 years before a law realizes full implementation. So I do that and stretch that 3 years to a decade after full implementation. All right, let's go to the first measure here. Nevada question 1, Equality of Rights Amendment. A yes vote supported adding language to the Nevada Constitution that prohibits the denial or abridgment of rights on account of an individual's race, color, creed, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, age, disability, ancestry, or national origin. I was actually surprised that they did not already have that in place. Anywho, this measure passed by 58.63%. Who supported this? Senators Nicole Cannizzaro, Heidi Gensert, Scott Hammond, Dina Neal, David Parks, Julia Reddy, Patricia Spearman, and Joyce Woodhouse, all Democrats. Organizations in favor: Battle Born Progress, Human Rights Campaign PAC, Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada, and Sierra Club Toynbee chapter. Okay, one of the arguments in support, Senator Scott Hammond, I can find no part of it that is anything but equality under the law. This is a question of justice, period. That is interesting. They did not have that. Who opposed it? Alliance Defending Freedom, Nevada Families for Freedom, Pro-Life League of Nevada. One of the arguments against it from Janie Henson says the amendment will result in inequality and confusion and will eliminate protections and benefits women currently enjoy. Okay. Okay. There was no money that was spent to support this measure or to oppose this measure. And the other ballot measure is Nevada Question 2, and that is the minimum wage amendment. A yes vote supported amending the state constitution to increase the minimum wage for all employees in Nevada to $12 per hour by July 1st, 2024. So not even the $15 an hour, but 12, you guys. Sorry. Remove the existing annual inflation adjustments to the minimum wage and allow the state legislator to pass a minimum wage law setting the rate higher than the constitutionally mandated minimum. This measure passed by 55.18%. I'm actually surprised in reference to increasing the minimum wage, it didn't pass by more than that. Be interesting to hear from those of you that are in Nevada why you think that is. Who supported this? State Assemblyman Jason Frierson, organizations Battle Born Progress. Here's one of the arguments in favor. From Jason, the distinction between minimum wage depending on whether or not there is health care has been included in the Nevada Constitution for some time. It's important to note that Nevada is the only state that has this distinction. We've had numerous conversations in an attempt to define what healthcare benefits need to be in order to qualify. It's an unusual way to calculate minimum wage and distinguish between minimum wage rates. We believe it's time to make that change so Nevada can remain competitive to our surrounding states. I just thought about the Michael Jackson song when he said, make that change. Gonna make a change. Who opposed it? Republican Party of Nevada, organizations Americans for Prosperity Nevada, Americans for Tax Reform, Las Vegas Metro Chamber of Commerce, and Nevada Families for Freedom. One of the arguments against it, the minimum wage is designed for entry-level jobs, which will be eliminated, depriving young people of work experience and opportunities. Higher minimum wage hurts the very people they are supposed to help, including minorities, low-skill workers, and teenagers. They kill me with this term, low-skill workers. I really don't like that. Really don't like it. But it's interesting. They say the minimum wage is designed for entry-level jobs, which will be eliminated, depriving young people. It's really interesting because nowadays, when I go to some of these places where people are making minimum wage, I see a lot of older people working those jobs nowadays. Whereas when I was growing up, I worked those jobs. When I was in high school, me and a lot of my friends, it was teenagers working at McDonald's. It was teenagers working at the mall. It was teenagers working at, Burger King. Now, when I go to those places, you know who I see working those jobs? Women who are like in their 40s. One of the women that works at the gas station down the street, she's like 70 years old. What happened? There was no campaign finance money to support or oppose increase in the minimum wage. I see Kit is here. Kit says this year has been rough though. Yeah, I mean, like I'm seeing older people working these jobs that I'm just like, look, people who are past retirement age, standing on their feet, long hours, working at gas stations, working, retail. Interesting times. And just a note here from Roger Meadows, My commentary: first, why in the world would you vote to remove the provision that ties minimum wage to the cost of living? And then second, make sure you peep the highlighted. Again, to live in Nevada, it says here that you need to make $23.70 per hour for the state housing wage to live in Nevada. So that's important. People need to see this. In Reno, I think it's a little like $26. Las Vegas, 23. Douglas County, it looks like 22. Elko County looks like 22. And Carson City looks like around $21 an hour. In Nevada, the fair market rent for a 2-bedroom apartment is $1,232. In order to afford this level of rent and utilities without paying more than 30% of income on housing, a household must earn $4,108 monthly or $49,294 annually, assuming a 40-hour work week, 52 weeks per year. This level of income translates into an hourly housing wage of $23.70 an hour. So even that minimum wage increase here for the $12 an hour, that's nowhere near where you need to be to even afford a 2-bedroom apartment in Nevada. This is why when we say it's great that people are increasing the minimum wage to that $15 an hour, but at this point in time, it should actually be higher. That's just the fact, Jack. When you look at inflation and when you look at rent, $15 an hour doesn't cut it anymore. Okay, let me finish up Nevada here. So the last question for Nevada ballot initiatives, make sure I'm at the right one. Is this the voting initiative one? Yes, it's the voting initiative one. All right, we're finishing up Nevada here. This is question number 3. Top 5 ranked choice voting initiative. A yes vote supported establishing open top 5 primaries and ranked choice voting for general elections, which would apply to congressional, gubernatorial, state executive official, and state legislative elections. This passed by 52.94%. So, we've talked about this before. One way for third party and independent candidates to become more viable is to have ranked choice voting. So Nevada actually passed that. When Andrew Yang was here, he talked about that. So let me go on here. It says top 5 primaries, establishes top 5 primaries for partisan office. This includes office of United States Senator, U.S. Representative, Governor, Lieutenant Governor, Attorney General, Secretary of State, State Treasurer, State Comptroller, state legislators. However, this excludes office of presidents of the United States and vice presidents of the United States. So that's important to note. And it says a person could become a candidate for office regardless of party affiliation or lack thereof. Any registered voter could cast a primary candidate for any candidate regardless of the party affiliation of the voter or of the candidate. The 5 candidates receiving the greatest number of votes in the primary election would advance to the general election. If there were 5 or fewer candidates running for office, the primary election would still be held and the results made public. If one of the top 5 candidates withdraws, disqualifies, or dies after the primary election, but before 5 p.m. on the 4th Friday in July, the candidate that received the next greatest number of votes at the primary election would be made a nominee and would advance to the general election. Ranked choice voting establishes ranked choice voting for general elections for partisan office. And under this measure, all general elections for partisan office would be conducted by ranked choice voting. Again, it includes those same ones that I mentioned before. Now, a voter could choose to rank just one candidate for office, and that vote would be tabulated. Under this measure, if a voter has assigned the same ranking to more than one candidate, that ballot would be considered inactive. If a ballot skips a ranking, then the election board would count the next ranking. If the next ranking is another skipped ranking, the ballot would be considered an inactive ballot for that race. Any votes made for none. None of these candidates would be tabulated, recorded, and made public, but not counted for purposes of ranking. If there is a tie between two final candidates, the winner would be decided in a manner as provided by statute. If there is a tie between two candidates with the fewest votes, the eliminated candidate would be decided by lot. Who supported this? Institute for Political Innovation, Represent.us, Vote Nevada. One of the arguments that was made is that fortunately, by implementing a ranked choice voting system, the proposed reform will free voters to support independent candidates without the fear of aiding another party. To this end, Nevadans can expect the new system to result in a diverse field of candidates more capable of producing a system of representation consistent with the sentiments and interests of a true majority. Who also supported this? Oh, I think that's there twice. And who opposed it? Senators Catherine Masto, Jackie Rosen, Mark Amodi, and Governor Steve Sisolak. And that's bipartisan, guys. So you had Democrats and Republicans who opposed it, of course, because it's not for their party. It would actually hurt them. That's why they opposed it. Unions, Nevada State AFL-CIO, and organizations who opposed it, Americans for Tax Reform, Battle Born Progress, and Let Nevadans Vote. That's interesting. Let Nevadans vote, but you don't want them to do ranked choice voting. That doesn't make any sense. One of the arguments was enshrining this system in Nevada's state constitution would make a mistake because meaningful access to the ballot box is too critical to our system of representative government to sacrifice at the altar of an unproven, unwieldy experiment. They're actually talking about representation, but they only want certain people to be represented. That doesn't make any sense. They just knew it would hurt their bottom line. That's what this is really about. So, yeah, there was a lot of money spent to support this initiative. Over $23 million was spent to support it. And to oppose it, over $2 billion was spent to oppose it. I think about what all that money could do if that money went into mutual aid instead. This is why you need to see the dollar amounts that are spent on these initiatives, especially to oppose it, because this is money that could have been used. You could have built clinics with this money. We could build public clinics for people. We could build homes for people with that money. And that's pretty much a wrap, Jack. So lots of money spent there. Roger added a little bit of commentary. I wonder why AFL-CIO was against it. Maybe it's because they're afraid their members will apply to them. I was kind of surprised to see a union oppose that as well. That was interesting.